Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I had a voiceover I wanted to do, and I can't remember almost anything about it. So I've been leaving notes for myself. Occasionally, I do this where I put some, a line or two, so I have just in case. I usually don't forget things that I think about, like before I go to bed, or if I meditate at night or something. Then I just whatever. But hopefully, it'll come back to me. Um, One of my viewers pointed this exchange out, and I also listened to a little bit of Candace Owens' um, new thing that she just put up, which she is kind of blaming Israel for his death, but not doing that. Like, she's hard to listen to, and I'll explain that in a moment. But a lot of this has to do with his wife now, because his wife is wanting to be a star, and they're trying to make her a star. And she's almost Kamala Harris-esque. I don't know if there are a lot of Christian women who will, and young women who, they're all been Kardashianed out. Because this is like this is like one of those Real Housewives kind of, a Christian Real Housewife type person, reality TV show star person. Um, she, my last video I showed that she was on this reality TV show, and someone who wants to be famous and, has had numerous ventures into the celebrity type world, right? Wanting to be an actress and a model, having her own podcast and her own social media stuff, and then, helping making her husband famous, and then all these other things, right? Um, she she says something really weird here to do with her daughter. One of my viewers pointed this out in a comment, and I can't watch this whole thing because it's just so weird. But let's start here. It feeds into it.
I'll make Turning Point USA the biggest thing that this nation has ever seen.
See, like she's saying that, like, who gives a shit about Turning Point? Your husband's dead, right? like nothing matters. Like, I mean, anybody who's had experienced grief or being in a state of shock, there's things that happen, and you just like can't deal with anything, right? Like she's trying to show how she's crying all over the place, and she's breaking down multiple pictures and all these things, very, very performative. And like it's a weird thing to say, right? Like, you can wait a week, but I mean, to come out here, they installed this podium, right? Like, you would be, like the details here, the way that her hands were done, her nails, all the stuff that people point out. But there's this podium. My wife had pointed this out. Who put the podium in, right? Like, do they have a podium? This is, they had to do this. This is a couple days after he's dead. They had to make this thing here, right? Like, well, we gotta, this. It's all stagecraft. I mean, there's so much here, so performative, but like weird.
I promise. Charlie, I love you.
Charlie, I love you. Charlie. I used to do this with Alec Baldwin. Remember Alec Baldwin used to always whisper, Charlie, I love you. Charlie, I'll make Turning Point the biggest thing that's ever existed. Charlie, Charlie, I love you. Charlie, I love you. I love you, Charlie. Charlie, Charlie, Charlie.
I love you, baby.
I love you, baby. Baby, baby, I love you.
Rest in the arms of our Lord as he blankets you with the words I know your heart always strived to hear. Well done, my good and faithful servant.
Well done, my good and faithful servant. Well done, my good and faithful servant. So I'd heard this before. I just stopped right before this weird thing happened coming up.
When I got home last night, Gigi, our daughter, just ran into my arms.
Our arms. That was weird. So she said went into our, and then, so who was our? I mean, people misspeak, and I'm sort of generous with that because I understand when I do my own thing, I just say things all the time like, That would almost be like glitching out because you just say a lot of words. And people who speak publicly, if it's live, then you can't edit it out. And so I know that you can misspeak, right? She ran into our arms. So who's are you dating somebody already? Who you seeing? Is it Trump? And so you know, that was weird. But all right, that could just be a mistake. But is he still alive, Charlie? So like this is.
And I talked to her and she said, Mommy, I missed you. I said, I miss you too, baby. She goes, where's Daddy? What do you tell a 3-year-old?
Where's Daddy? What do you tell a 3-year-old? What do you do? Well, what do you do to? It's a 3-year-old. What are you gonna say? So I came with something that's really fucking weird. I decided to say really weird shit.
She's 3.
She's 3. She's only 3. She's only 3.
I said, baby, Daddy loves you so much. Don't you worry. He's on a work trip with Jesus, so he can afford your blueberry budget.
The fuck? What the fuck? So you decide to lie to her. She's 3 years old. Now kids absorb things and get over things, very quickly. So you're going to be going to the funeral with her and all these other fucking things they have. She's got she's going to be busy now. Like, she's not going to have time for a fucking little Rugrats anymore. She's going to be nannied up, right? But you're going to have to bring her to all these events of your memorial for your husband. And people are going to be weeping. All this shit's going to go on. Like, you're going to have to tell her pretty soon, like, within hours, yeah, that blueberry thing was bullshit. He's dead, right? But why would you pin it on her blueberry budget, right? I mean, you guys couldn't afford blueberries with your $30 million fucking. You got martyr money now, bitch, right? You're not gonna. Is it a blueberry budget? You want the kid to think her dad had to go to heaven because she fucking likes blueberries? You're gonna put it on her addiction to blueberries? You could probably afford those, without him going to heaven. Why don't you sell one of your fucking $100,000 pieces of jewelry or something? Let's go back here.
She goes, where's Daddy? What do you tell a 3-year-old? She's 3. I said, baby, Daddy loves you so much. Don't you worry. He's on a work trip with Jesus, so he can afford your blueberry budget.
What's funny about that? Like, what's fucking weird? Now, saying he's on a work trip with Jesus would mean that the work that he does with Jesus is financially compensating him, right? Like, that's another thing that she's divulging here. Spiritual work should always be for free. The work that you do for God. I mean, you can get compensated in other ways, and but she's saying that the work that he does for Jesus is like his job. And he's doing work with Jesus, and they're gonna take down a bank and afford your fucking blueberries, you piece of shit. I mean, just a weird thing to say. Like, just again, she could say she's on a work trip with Jesus, but he's gonna come around and he's dead. Like, he's gotta have to tell her, within days. So, I mean, and your first instinct is to lie. Yeah, he's working with Jesus and he's going to get in a bank and, fucking blueberry, and then tying it into something like it has to do with you, like you're eating this out of house and home, you're a fucking blueberry addict. As when I first channel, this channel's been around since 2007. And my original videos was just documenting my family and I were learning how to homestead, milking cows and doing all the things that on a farm, making cheese and butter out of the milk and, all the things, putting in fences and dealing with all the, things we were doing, learning how to homestead, building outbuildings and, chicken, like a chicken house, all these things. And my videos got maybe 1,000 views, around that. I was making like $100 a month. It was not really like just a side thing. And I made this video of my kids and I planting blueberries. My kids were, 4 kids in 5 years, and so like 3, 4, 5, and, 7, something like that. They were like, young kids, and we planted some blueberries, and it got 100,000 views. And I only kind of was paying attention to the channel. I was like, it's weird because it's kind of not that good of a video. It was just a short video of the kids that I planted blueberries, nothing that would stand out, right? Like nothing insightful that would be there, and compared to other videos where it was like milking cows and, there was things where I would, hold the camera and I would talk about everything that we were doing. And videos that apparently are becoming popular now. But I was doing this back in 2007 where I'd, talk about the things I talk about here, but while scanning the, farm or walking around the farm and saying things. But anyways, so one day somebody wrote me a comment saying that I was a real piece of shit for making my kids plant the marijuana plants, because there's a marijuana plant called Blueberry. Like it was back when marijuana was becoming more sophisticated, and there was these pot that was referred to as Blueberry, right? And so I was like, you think that I would have my kids be planting marijuana, like, and I'd never said anything, just blueberry bushes, but some pot, like some group of pot smokers, like there's a lot of them in some chat group, and somebody put my video in there, and so all these pot smokers, and of course they're probably not the most aware people, so they were thinking whatever, but it's a weird thing she's doing here, right? Just,
And my goodness, am I so humbled to witness, Charlie, you alongside Jesus right now, doing what you always want to do, baby. Making heaven crowded, right?
is that it? You're making heaven crowded? Now that he's there, it's crowded. He takes up a lot of space. You think it's going to inspire all these other people or whatever to get to heaven? I'm not sure even where that. She's just fucking weird. But like this is. I don't think she just winged it, right? I mean, she's reading something. She's written something, right? She's got it on her lectern. So this is, I mean, it's so bad. This is like 2 days afterwards. And it's, a lot of people were saying in the comments, I mean, she's getting slammed. But she might be able to carve herself out an audience of dopes because, there's so many dumb fucks out there. I want to check one more thing here. Okay, so again, it's Tuesday or Tuesday, September 16th. And, my wife and I watched a little bit of Aaron Burnett just between watching something. It just was on and it just started. And I got the whole clip. There's a lot of interesting things, some new developments. And there's going to be a bunch of shit later on today. And I don't know how much I'm going to cover today and some tomorrow. But, the Epstein thing is fucking gone. And I don't know if it could stay gone. But this is, I don't know how people are reacting, but obviously I'm getting a lot more views on my videos. So just from that alone, people are really interested in this. It's bizarre that they're interested in this more than Trump being completely implicated in the Epstein thing. But they are. And I just want to show you this one part here.
Let's bring in retired FBI agent Darren Mott, who spent 20 years in the Bureau and is now Director of Client Outreach and Education at the National Cybersecurity Operations Center. And clearly there's a lot of cyber investigation at work in this crime investigation. Darren, welcome. Your take on the evidence that you heard about today in this case?
So with the DNA evidence, obviously, if you're going to touch something, you're going to leave evidence on it. And with most guys of this particular persuasion, operational security is not the key thing they're thinking about. So being able to find digital forensic information about notes that he wrote, finding the Discord and perhaps Telegram channels he was on, makes it easy to go back and process what he was thinking leading up to this event.
So it's shocking when you dig into some of the back and forth on Discord, because after he committed this crime, allegedly committed this crime.
Allegedly. Thanks for throwing in the allegedly.
So his friends in this group chat, and in many of the people in these group chats aren't using their real names. It seems like in this case he was, because they refer to him as Tyler and they talk about Charlie. But he sees the guy on the video who looks just like him and he says, "Oh, that's a doppelganger, that's my twin."
Doppelganger.
And one of the other people says, "Whatever you do, don't go to a McDonald's anytime soon." And we all know that's where Luigi Mangione, the United Healthcare CEO, alleged killer, that's where he was caught. And then they go back and forth on the reward, the $100,000 reward for any information. They say, "Oh, we're going to turn you in." He says, "Only if I get a cut." And then he's joking, "Better get rid of this manifesto and the exact copy rifle that I have lying around." As someone who's seen a lot of criminals and the things that they say, this seems very cavalier for someone who just took someone's life and who never had any experience with this kind of thing before.
Sure, and I think there's a lot of
Okay, so Erin Burnett covered the whole thing, and she talked about how he's being so flippant here. I don't know what word that she used. How he's joking around because this whole and him saying here about the manifesto, right? I talked about the manifesto, and so they realized that the manifesto is a tell because they put these things out. They have these packages out. So many of these fake, whatever events that have happened, they create these profiles. And the profile they've created, I've showed you this one guy. I don't know where it is and which video I've just made. But he was saying, yeah, this thing doesn't seem like it makes any sense. It's just that we've seen this happen time and time again. So what you have is individual citizens, individual sittings, a meditation thing. Which I do every Tuesday. I'm on the Gratefullness meditation channel, but individual citizens who are just always loners, often quiet, introverted, possibly, whatever it is. And these disgruntled people who do things. And we've seen the profiles, and there's been probably 50 of them, have been major news stories where somebody goes off and just starts killing people or kills a specific person and becomes a trained assassin. Video game player and pieces of shit like this who, whatever they are, right? Just normal, with no really skills, no military background, no whatever. No connection or affiliation to any group. When, they pull off these crimes and they're able to, get access to a place to shoot the person and, all the things that we've seen over the years. And this is a very specific political assassination, which we know the Trump thing is bullshit. And we know the Trump person got who remembers even the guy's name? The guy didn't have anything and nobody knows why he did it. And he's dead and nobody, it just disappeared. The fake Trump thing that happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. But why would he do with it, right? Why would they be able to pull it off when the more logical thing would be a trained assassin, right? And a organization behind that person, because you need a team of people to pull shit like that off, right? And so I just don't believe these things because they've created them. I know a bunch of them are fake. And so I don't believe in the individual, normal, average American citizen that nobody saw this coming. And then, them having he's not panicked at all. He just killed the guy. He's not feeling it. It's just like Erica Kirk, when she is talking about these things 2 days after her husband's dead. Not having the normal human emotions that you would have. I don't want to give a fuck about anything. I can't think about Turning Point right now. No, I got to go out there, build a podium, and give a long speech and blueberry shame my daughter. All this fucking stuff, right? And so I don't believe in this story at all. I never believe in these things. It could be true, sure. I can't prove it one way or another. And I want to get back to that when we talk about the stuff with Candace Owens. About proof and things like this. It just it doesn't make logical sense. This would be something that would be best done by a professional killer. But this guy would be fucked up after doing that, right? If he isn't let's say he's a sociopath, and nobody is saying this about the guy, right? I mean, he's dating a transgender person. Like, is he a sociopath? Like that, and if you're a sociopath, you care about almost nothing. You have a very low emotional threshold. But he would be panicked about, you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail and possibly be killed. Your life is about to get shitty. And he's joking around on these platforms. Why would he be doing that? Like, why in the world would you be doing that? Why would you be talking about a manifesto and things like this when you should be panicked about what you, at least, if you couldn't feel guilt or remorse, you'd be panicked about your own personal future. And so, like, these things, they never make any sense. And I don't think I need to even tell you guys, but, like they ask these questions. I can't believe this guy's talking like this. Yeah, because it's not fucking real, right? So let me go to the Candace Owens thing here. Okay, so I figured out what annoys me about Candace Owens. And I remembered also what happened with the voiceover that I'm going to talk about. It has to do with so-called facts, in air quotes. Two different things. So she, a lot of people said that her reaction to Charlie Kirk's death was much more sincere. She cried or whatever. I saw a little bit of it. Than his wife. And, for those of you who, don't watch me regularly, I call this the show, like everything that we see in mainstream media. And the show is full of shit. It's a deception. It's for our benefit or our detriment. And it's to keep this society going, keep people engaged, keep people distracted, keep people motivated. And back when the internet was more organic and the truth community was more organic, you could post whatever you wanted. And they were just like, all right, we're just going to ignore this stuff. That we need the internet, and the internet was key to the next stage or whatever's happening. People that control the system. And they just let people run wild and post whatever the fuck they wanted. There was very little community guidelines on YouTube and restrictions on Facebook. And then they started to see a problem, right? Before that, they had one sort of shill, which was Alex Jones. Alex Jones admitted that he was part of the Illuminati, right? Let me put that meme in there. I got that. That's kind of funny. I'll roll. Well, no, yeah, let me roll all my Alex Jones stuff here. Let's watch this first.
This is a human. This is what we look like. This is what we act like. This is what everybody was like before us. This is what I am. I'm a throwback. I'm here. I've got the fire of human liberty. I'm setting fires everywhere.
This is a shill. This is what we look like. This is what we act like. This is how you make $165 million. I'm COINTELPRO. I work for the CIA. I'm cutting you out of your money. I'm cutting you out of your money everywhere.
So to many of us, it became pretty obvious. I don't know. I think for me, it was right when Alec did the disastrous interview with Piers Morgan on CNN. And he was threatening him. He just, you act like a buffoon. And they wanted crazy. The people controlling the system wanted to make so-called conspiracy theorists crazy. Like, that's the profile they had created. And Alec just gave it to him. Alex gave it to him on every level. It was clear that he was just, disinfo and COINTELPRO, these different kinds of programs. And it just got worse from there. Then the whole Trump debacle and then being deplatformed. I think it should be obvious to most people. But apparently it isn't, because he banked $165 million in the last 3 years, right? Which is a lot of jing, right? And so he's making a lot of money on his shilling his goofy products. And there was a time where he literally admitted his family was Freemasons, Illuminati, Rosicrucians. Here it is.
I have to probably say that I have major Masonic roots. A lot of my family, because Texas was pretty much Masonic through and through, was Masonic, high-level Masonic. And they were very, very good people. George Washington was a Mason. And all it is a university study of religions, of philosophy, and of building, and of mathematics, and of agrarian systems. And so what you see as Masons today is just those schools going on. And there have been hundreds of different variants and groups. And
Wait, did you just say hundreds of different variants? Right? This is from like 2000, I don't know, 12, 13, something like that, before Trump. And I have this in an old video somewhere, but I'd have to go search for it. I didn't want to do that. But luckily someone had posted this because it's hard to find Alex on the internets anymore, right? And I'm sure he doesn't want people seeing this one.
Rosicrucian orders within the Masons and the Illuminati, founded in Germany, was a counter-Illuminati to the real Illuminati. And yes, undoubtedly, my family on both sides on the Mayflower, hardcore Protestants, you could say Rosicrucians. This country was founded by real Rosicrucians, not the Rosicrucians you see out there today. And so undoubtedly, if you want to say it, I mean, I would say I come out of a classical Enlightenment family of what you would call real Illuminati, real Enlightenment. And I'll just say it here. When everybody asks me who I am, I'll tell you. There's no secret society. There's no secret messages. There's no secret handshakes. There's freedom. There's Jesus Christ. There's free market. There's family. There's the will to fight tyrants. That's what there is. The will to fight evil. The will to build a new civilization.
And so there is secret society stuff, skull and bones stuff, all these types of fraternal clubs and, not just the Freemasons, but all these things. Various variants of these clubs, these, secret clubs with their secret handshakes and stuff, right? In this, the Skull and Bones created the CIA, and Alec is a part of that club, right? He's talking about being old-time Mayflower. He says his family's coming in on the Mayflower, and they're Rosicrucians and Illuminati and Freemasons, right? And he demonized a lot of this occult stuff. He's one of the people who pushed all these ideas of secret meetings and secret handshakes, and they do have these things, right? And whether they call themselves this or that or the other thing, you have mostly men meeting in private to conspire to loot and exploit and enslave and control other people, right? This has gone on forever. People want more. People want more power. They want more more status, they want more wealth, right? And they do it by, these stealth-like organizations, these fraternities, right? And Alex is admitting he's a part of it after demonizing them forever. I was like, what is he doing here, right? You asked if, if you're going to be honest, my family is Illuminati. What are you talking about, right? And so it should be clear to everyone that this guy is a complete shill and COINTELPRO, and he's been used as a weapon against truthers because the way that they decided to combat this, right? When you have like an NFL offense, remember the San Francisco 49ers came up, I forget what the name of the offense was, but no one could stop it. Like it was this brilliant Bill Walsh, this coach. I mean, there was the greatest show on turf with the St. Louis Rams or one of those, Kurt Warner. And then there was the triangle offense, the triangle and two, which was used by the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. And these offenses come out, these plans, it's, some sort of a war strategy. And eventually other smart people come up with defenses to stop them, right? They just study video and like you have a great rookie quarterback comes out and he's lighting it up and no one can stop him. And then all of a sudden, some defensive coach cracks the code, gets their weakness, and figures out a plan, a template to stop him, right? There's always these types of things that happen. It's strategery, right? And so the internet came about, and I don't know how much they lost control of it. I don't know how much it was part of a plan. But the people who control the system realized that there was this free-flowing information and secrets that they didn't want out there were coming out. So they get a shill like Alex Jones to be the face of this movement, and they come up with this template, a profile of the kind of person that believes in these things, which is crazy right-wing, a nut person who's emotionally unstable, violent, all these things. And Alex gave him that. That's how he acted. He fit the profile perfectly, and they're still using this profile today. When anybody speaks up, and you could be a hardcore liberal, you could have never voted for a Republican, and you could have some sort of a wake-up moment, and they're still going to make you into a right-wing crazy nut job, a Trump supporter, somebody who's unstable, a crazy conspiracy theorist, and that's the profile, and it's worked for them. Because, the people who dabble in these things and start to believe in them, they don't want to admit it because they don't want to be seen as a crazy right-wing Alex Jones type person. It worked perfectly, right? They, used him as a way to demonize and pathologize a movement of truth. And instead of being on the defensive themselves and having to answer for all these facts and narratives that were coming out, they just went on the attack. And anybody who says any of these things, oh, you just sound like one of those crazy conspiracy theorists. And Alex gave him, like he just handed him that profile, and it's stuck ever since. And so he's done a lot of damage, but there's still people out there handing them their money, right? $165 million worth in 3 years. And so that tells you everything you need to know about the truth community. That's the video that's on this channel where I was talking about how it came out that he grossed $165 million in 3 years. Let's say his expenses or whatever it is. I don't know what his taxes are, but he's still raking in millions of dollars a year with his I mean, this is post being deplatformed. And so I wanted to do my impression of him again. Maybe my wife were watching that video. I forgot how great it was.
Do the Alex Jones voice. We're at war. I've declared bankruptcy. I'm broke. I need your help right now. My body's full of cholesterol, and there's a strange growth on my scrotum. There's only one way to fight this madness, to win this war. You need to buy my products, and you need to do it now before my head explodes. My blood pressure is too high. I'm on the verge of being thrown out by Illuminati, and they've canceled my gym membership, and I need your money and your support now. I just made a stinky. Roger.
You know what it's like to go to sleep every night knowing you work for a bunch of psychotic killers and you bastards are probably going to end up killing me one day? You know what it's like knowing you've ruined my life? You know what it's like, you sons of bitches? I'm tired of your crap!
You know what it's like to go to sleep every day knowing you work for a bunch of psychotic killers that's probably going to kill you one day? You bastards, you ruined my life. I want to quit. I want my 401k. Let me get out of this contract.
They had one guy with Alex Jones, and then there's like 100,000 employees of some disinformation center. Washington Post actually did an article about it. They were just working with the intelligence community and working online. And so they had smaller channels, smaller individual people, just disinfo agents. But they really weren't all that concerned with the truth community. Then they got concerned. Then there were restrictions. And then, they wanted to make it a left-right thing. So they divided into the woke community of the left people and the, right-wing Alex Jones type people, and now Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Candace Owens. And so they're all controlled because, you can see from what she's talking about here, which I'll get into in a moment. Like she talks about how Israel had influence over Charlie Kirk and was trying to, control him, right? And so she, I don't know what to say about these people. Like, I don't really, they say some things that are like truth oriented. They cover some things. Like Joe Rogan was a little bit better than a lot of other people on COVID say. And, Tucker Carlson had stuff, that was kind of truth related. But, they're just part of the beast, right? They have a microphone in front of their face. And they're influenced and they hobnob. And they know each other. They know all these people, within politics and stuff. And, she was praised by Trump. Like she pushed Trump was, obviously a piece of shit. And everyone could have seen it. And they went along with the fake assassination attempt, which was so obviously fake. and so many other people. It just kind of broke the truth community because all these people failed to just call it like it was so obviously fake, right? I got all this stuff I cover here. I have a whole playlist of all the videos I put out on that. But anyways, they're owned. They're influenced. Like they're pushing an agenda, and they're right leaning people. Like they believe that the liberals and the conservatives are not owned by the same groups, are not controlled by the same people. Which is obviously there's only one way a controlling system would work, and that's to control both sides. In the history of the binary system, the us against them system, right? Breaking people up into two groups, divide and conquer. They have to control both groups. It has to be that way, and they won't acknowledge it. And I can give them a pass on that because who gives a shit? The system's collapsing one way or another, right? So I don't watch these various people I'm talking about. Occasionally I'll see something or somebody will send me something. But I watched Candace Owens when she first was turning on Israel, or not first, when it became a thing, and, to do with Epstein. And then they started recommending her videos to me, and then they stopped, and I stopped, seeing things that she posted. I only watch a few minutes because I'll explain why in a second, but, there's something that annoys me about the way she presents things. But then this Charlie Kirk thing came up, and they recommended his, the video she cried, and I didn't get to the part where she cried. I only watched a few minutes. But she definitely came off better than his wife. But here...
All right, you guys, we're going to jump right into this with no introduction. There's a lot that I would like to speak with you guys about. Can't wait to hear your feedback. A lot of lies that are being put out there, narratives that I would say are half-truths or just misrepresentations entirely. And I don't really see the reason for that. First and foremost, to let you know...
What do you mean don't see the reason for it? Like, it's because they're pushing an agenda, right? So what I realize I don't like about her is she's very cryptic, and also, that's also Erica, Erica Kirk. Very cryptic, but very serious. Very, emotionally... this is something to be scared of or upset about. This very emotional. Like the thing about what I think what makes my channel better than what they do here is I've accepted that the system sucks. We're the evil empire. We're going the wrong direction. We're going away from God's will, and it has to come down. And that sucks for us. It just does, on a material level, on an egotistical level, on a comfort level. That's just, there's no way to get around that. But it doesn't have to be some fucking, just the drama. Like Candace Owens Parker's a basketball player. Candace Owens is a very dramatic person, right? The drama that they bring. Like, Erica Kirk is off the top drama. And drama just sucks. Like, and people love drama now. Young people, like, it's a big thing. Like, drama is like a commodity, right? It's a currency.
Last week was not a dream. Charlie Kirk, my friend, is dead. And he was publicly executed. I want to make that clear. Charlie Kirk was publicly executed before the world.
Okay, so when you say something like that, that means that this 22-year-old dumb fuck, whatever he is, couldn't possibly do it. And if you've covered these things like I've had over the years, you know that they're pushing this individual citizen, average Joe person just goes and assassinates somebody or shoots people up. Now for 10 years, they've been pushing this individual person. And it comes with the same... It comes with the same personality trait, like they're actually being trained to have these same characteristics, like they always, these things. And there hasn't been, like this 22-year-old kid saying manifesto. I've been calling bullshit manifesto for a while. Like when's the manifesto coming out? I even said it with this kid. But they stopped writing manifestos. Luigi Mangione didn't have a manifesto, right? And he should have because it was a anti-CEO thing, right? But these angry young men that come out and do these things, they've been pushing this narrative, and it's fake as fuck because they, where does it come from? Like it's like they're all in some kind of a club, and they do some kind of training, and they They learn how to write manifestos, and why would this kid even mention it? It's like now they're mocking their own profiles they've created. These intelligence community profiles. They're going all the way back to JFK's assassination, where at least that guy was a sniper, but not a good one. Lee Harvey Oswald, right? But these profiles of these guys, right? And so she said it's assassination. So that's something completely different than what the mainstream story is saying, right? She's calling bullshit on that.
And as we are all searching for answers, the ones that are being supplied to us are not making a lot of sense. And some people, I would say, are speaking too much, are speaking on behalf of other people.
Netanyahu, she's talking about here.
Like it. I will say something that I think brought the world a lot of relief, also, sadness. We were grieving with her, was when his wife, Mrs. Erica Kirk, addressed not just the nation, but the entire world. Her words were very powerful.
Are you shitting me? It was a fucking joke. This is where these guys all suck. Tucker Carlson had a thing about how Charlie Kirk was not affected by his celebrity and his success. And he fucking totally was. Like, I didn't know this guy before, right? I first heard about him because Candace Owens was talking about how she was believing there was ties between Mossad and Jeffrey Epstein. So I listened to a few, these people. There was some guy who was interviewed on, was it like either Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson? And then he went on that other comedian's, the guy with the mustache, Italian guy, Sullivan. I don't know what his name is. And I watched a little bit of that. And this guy was an Indian guy who had all this documentation of the Jeffrey Epstein money trail, how he became rich and these things. And this was talked about by a number of people. And it was the first time that people in the beastly show, albeit people who are considered, sort of fringier conspiracy theorist type people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, we're now starting to bring in Mossad in Israel as, doing operations and controlling American shit. Like, this is a new thing. Like, this has been around for a long time. Of course, Alex Jones was a complete Israeli shill. He just would never say anything about Israel. Like, I remember there was some kind of event that happened that clearly benefited Israel. And he was like trying to figure out who would do it, who did it. And he was like, Israel doesn't benefit. I'm like, yeah, they totally benefit. Right? So, the thing is that you have these controlled shills that all of a sudden turn on one of the big controlling agencies, which is Israel and Mossad. And, but now she's saying that Erica Kirk rocked it. It was wrong at every level. And pretty much everybody I've seen talk about it, all the comments I'm getting, people are saying, like, everybody was kind of freaked out and like, wow, this is fucked up about Erica Kirk.
And we just have a very brief portion of her remarks, which you should pursue in their entirety. But here she is.
If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea. You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country.
We got some kind of idea. She looks like she's dressed like John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever.
In this world, you have no idea. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry.
Of course, she wrote this on Instagram, too. Like, she had to get her signature lines. And she posted those exact words on Instagram. And then she posted that weird thing with her hands and the whole thing. It's so fake and so contrived and so artificial, right?
To everyone listening tonight across America, the movement my husband built will not die. It won't. I refuse to let that happen. It will not die.
Beautiful, powerful words. Charlie had just one wife. What we got to see across this weekend is that there were so many people around the world, like she said, who were deeply moved by Charlie Kirk throughout their lives and, of course, have been deeply moved by.
Okay, so I just want to show you one more clip from this. So she's, saying it's assassination, like saying, these things, implying that the official story is bullshit. And like, she's so sanctimonious and there's so much drama and so like it's emotionally manipulative. It's hard for me to watch these things. I mean, even with Candace Owens, and of course, Erica Kirk was way worse. But then she, this guy has quoted some, here, let me show you this piece here. So Charlie Kirk posted this thing.
Him and I, because this feels very relevant right now. This is, again, lyrics directly from the song Power, but I just needed time alone with my own thoughts, got treasures in my mind, but couldn't open up my own vault. My childlike creativity, purity, and honesty is honestly being crowded by these grown thoughts. Reality is catching up with me. Taking my inner child, I'm fighting for custody with these responsibilities that they entrusted me. And that's a moment where he is really speaking about how hard it is. Like when you're saying, no, this is what I believe. And they say, you're not allowed to believe that. You feel like you are fighting.
Okay, so the they in this circumstance is Israel. So let me switch over to voiceover. Okay, so this is the first time I saw Charlie Kirk, right? And this fucking weird shit here. And where I'm like, oh, this guy sucks. But he's saying something, before I knew all the things that he had said and all the things he stood for. Like I could just tell, right? But here's...
Lies that Epstein, with his little friend Ghislaine and Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, who was obviously a spy of the Israeli intelligence agencies, that there was something else going on here.
So this first time, this guy is being paid by Israel and is going to college campuses to debate all the protesters and all these people who are mad at Israel. He's being a shill for Israel. He practiced the Sabbath, which is, a part of the Jewish religion, and all these things. And now he's being, Candace Owens had said the guy was starting to turn. Like he saw Tucker Carlson, he saw Candace Owens.
Epstein was not some sort of whiz kid hedge fund manager. Epstein was playing a part. Epstein was a LARPer. Epstein was cast for a specific role, and he played it really well. The sweatpants and the Harvard jacket, the kind of disheveled hair, looking as if he was so smart and above the clouds that he was doing advanced mathematic equations on the back of napkins. But if you actually go into some of the videos of people that met with Epstein at the time, they said he was awfully unimpressive when it came to finance and markets and economics. And it's nothing new that if you're in the intel agencies, you want to try and get as much blackmail on powerful people as possible. Easy, not hard. And this is no longer just speculation. First of all, the evidence that shows that Epstein was a creation of either Mossad, Israeli intelligence, American intelligence, Saudi intelligence, or maybe he was just a hired gun. Maybe he was just the guy that countries would go to and park a couple $100 million and say, hey, can you get one of the members of the royal family with a 13-year-old so we can get them to do what we want to do? Members of Congress are actively being blackmailed. The Epstein playbook is being used on a daily basis. Jeffrey Epstein was not a financier. He was not a hedge fund manager. Jeffrey Epstein was a key player in a multi-decade blackmail operation against the most powerful people on the planet. Lies.
Okay, so let's go to the voiceover. I've already started the voiceover, but let's go to it. Okay, so I'm at the point in the voiceover where I'll be talking about how my wife and I had to rush out to give blood. And I'll talk about that more in a bit when I switch back to the voiceover. But the voiceover's coming. I forgot to show you this because it's important to what I was talking about. So Donald J. Trump posted this, a photo with him and Charlie Kirk cheek to cheek, and the Israeli and American flags, which this should be impeachment. He should just be gone because what the fuck is this guy? Is Charlie Kirk Israeli? So is he? Now, even if he's Jewish, he's American. Like he'd be American, right? But you'd have to be an Israeli citizen. That Israel and America would be represented equally here. It's completely fucked, right? Trying to figure out where this is. Is it here? No. Oh, this was the list. This is something I want to show you guys. Is it here? Here, it must be here. All right, here we are. And so here are some of the other images. Should have done this first. So the images to Donald J. Trump, everybody loves Charlie. And that's not the case. I just saw a video, which I'll be posting after the voiceover, about how Pam Bondi said they're going after everybody who is giving hate speech. And then Trump said everyone who criticizes him, they're going to go after because it's hateful. And so I'll show you that in a bit too. So this is the thing here. So, this is important to see. Like, Trump is, this should not be. Like, you're representing America. And we can have allies, but not the way that he puts Israel's interests ahead of America's all the time. Okay, so it's been good. I completed the voiceover. I explained the whole thing about giving blood, and I'm feeling a little bit better, which you'll hear as I've continued to work here. I'm waking up a little bit. But here's the voiceover. So, the little bit of time I watched some of Candace Owens' things about Epstein and Mossad, she mentioned the name Charlie Kirk, and he was finally coming around. And they were like good friends that, he has a number of video clips of her doing joint events with him, showing up at some of the college campuses, some of the things with him. And, they were good friends. But she has been really hard on Israel and has gone with Israel, gone in, some kind of battle with Israel. And he was going to these college campuses defending Israel and promoting Israel and slamming the Palestinian stuff. And, he was looking to, I showed you some clips of that, right? But that was a big part of what he was doing. And he was clearly funded, which she doesn't admit to, by Israel. So he's getting paid by Israel. And then people started to turn on him. And people, right-wing people, and say, you're full of shit because Israel's committed genocide and, these other things, and the Epstein stuff. And so then the first clip I saw of him, I think my wife sent it to me, he was on Twitter saying that Israel had to be connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Let me see if I can find that clip. Okay, so I went back and found it. Now you've already seen it, right? So, but he's mentioning Mossad as a possibility in Israel. And then all the other stuff that I found that he posted on Israel, and he said horrible things about the Palestinian people and the whole thing, the genocide, all of it. And he would debate these kids. But he had these people he associated with and people who were his fan base. And he's got to pay for those blueberries, right? So, and his wife's, monster jewelry obsession. He's got bills to pay. He's working for Jesus, and he's got to make bank. And so he's got to think about, this is a problem. And so he started to, and Candace Owens had said this, months when I first heard his name. And so what she said, what she goes on to say is that Netanyahu's going on he's the widow. He went on this tour, and he was talking about how he and Charlie were such great friends, but Charlie's wife didn't mention him. She didn't mention Netanyahu. She mentioned everybody else, Trump and the vice president and all those people. But she didn't mention Netanyahu. And Netanyahu read from a letter, and she said, why don't you read the rest of the letter? Because the rest of the letter wasn't about how much Charlie loved Israel. He was struggling with his connection. So Candace Owens says she has some information, and she's heard some things about how Israel was trying to control what he was saying. And that's what that cryptic song he posted was about. That he invited, I think the guy's name is Dave Smith, who's Jewish, and Tucker Carlson to some conference he was doing. And Netanyahu was pissed about it because they were paying, Charlie Kirk a lot of money to shill for Israel. They were paying a lot of people money to the influencers to shill for Israel. I showed you various videos about that. There's just people know that. And so he was pressured, and she brings up this one guy, I forget his name, and it's not that important because this is about something else. But she's talking about how this guy tried to handle Charlie. They did an intervention with him, and he was really struggling. And they had personal interactions where he said he was really struggling with this, and he was saying the rosary and praying about it. This is according to her. He was really struggling with saying things about Israel and turning on them. And he was bribed and turned down a shit ton of money. And this has been out on the internet for a while. And she has, some information about it. And Turning Point was a part of that, right? And then Netanyahu was going around and lying and saying all these things in interviews. And she showed a couple of the clips. And I've shown you some of the clips. And it's so greasy. Netanyahu's just such a piece of shit. And so then she goes on to say, and I watched a lot more longer than I wanted to. Like I just can't stand the drama, and she's manipulating her audience with a lot of these videos are very heavy, and my videos are lighter because I believe this is part of God's plan, and so I don't like it. Like there's things that are part of God's plan that everybody's ego doesn't like, and if you venture onto the spiritual path, God is going to want you to do stuff, and you're going to have to experience things that you're going to feel kind of pissed at God about. Your ego is, and it's going to be difficult to keep on going forward in faith because you just really don't like it, right? You have to eat a lot of shit when you enter on God's. We start working for God, and just in general, if you're just a religious person, you go through shit, and you're like, God, what the fuck, right? And so this was. Whatever is going on with these people that post this stuff, it's not such a big deal. Like we all suffer. Suffering's a part of life. And if the system collapses, it seems like a big deal, but it won't be. Just like Charlie Kirk in a year or two, like he won't even be a story. I mean, this story might have more legs, we don't know. But either way, they make it such like, it's just so greasy, so like emotionally manipulative. And, but it's hard to watch. But I sat through it. And I went and did different things and took breaks when I was playing this in the background. Because I wanted her to get to, if she's saying he's being assassinated. And she gets to the part where she's like, well, I'm not saying Israel killed him. Because I don't have the facts. And this is what I was going to make this voiceover about. Facts are really non-existent when you're talking about history. Because history is all about interpretation and what goes on inside of somebody, right? So there's a missing piece to the story of this kid killing Charlie Kirk, and that's the motivation. And they leave it open-ended so that you will make up your own history about it. Like when you tell this story about Charlie Kirk being killed, I'm talking about everybody and mostly sheeple. You're based on your right-wing stuff, your left-wing stuff. If you're a left-wing person, you're going to be like, Charlie Kirk said a bunch of hateful things about, racist and homophobic and anti-trans things and pro-gun things, and so he created a lot of hate. And then somebody shot him, and he deserved it. Like that's what that's how liberal will tell this history. And a dopey right-wing Republican, semi-truther, will say that the left wing were saying horrible things about Charlie and other right-wing people, and that's caused the indoctrination and the what's the word that they're using? Extremism, and these things that are happening. How this kid was turned into some extremist, like how was he radicalized? And that's the story. And that's kind of the official story. That's what they'll be saying at Fox or saying something different at CNN. But you're always interpreting other people's internal decision making. Why did this person do what they did? Why did they make this mistake? Or why did they, succeed? Or why, what happened here? There's always going to be blame. And, so that's not real facts. You're never going to get facts, right? You're never going to get, it's whatever the official story says is the facts. Whatever the government, the mainstream media, those become the facts, like I said. So you're never going to have facts. I don't deal in facts. Like, I'm not a fact person. Because it's all manipulated. Whatever the shit that you're getting, we're just sitting here in our houses, looking at the internet and trying to come up with, the truth based on little clues. I talked about these stupid QAnon people and the Cubies and their detective. They get these these junior detective badges in the cereal box for QAnon. QAnon would send you a junior detective box because this is a person with Q level clearance, but he needs your help. He needs some fat fucks, sitting in a couch in his basement. It's his help, right? We can't do it on our own. We need your help, you guys. I'm going to drop the Q drops, and then you guys roll with the info, right? So it's stupid. It's stupid to be pursuing facts because the facts are never there, and the facts are breadcrumbs that leading you in one direction or another depending on your personal beliefs. And so there's a different way to tell the truth. And it's more of a need-to-know basis. And it's connecting to the divinity inside of you and being able to just see things for what they are, see people for who they are. See through people's bullshit. Because you think about all the bullshit people put out on social media. This front that people create, the life that they want you to think they're living. All the photos they have to go through, all the takes they have to do to get the right photo to post on Facebook or Instagram, and just all this. Everyone has a publicity team, and everybody's creating a false front of who they really are, or who they want you to think they are, and hiding who they really are, right? And so it's all just fake stuff. So you have to be able to read people. You have to be able to read situations. And to do that, you develop your own qualities. This is why, I see through things that other people don't see through. And you have to have a connection to the divinity within you. And as you do that, and you mature as a person, you don't need all the, you don't need proof. You don't need the facts. These are just, mental constructs to delude people. Like, it's an illusion of facts, right? It's an illusion of, the reality to warp you in one direction or another, to Judas goat you down a path, lead you down a path to your own self-destruction. And so, you have to have consistency in your belief. And so if Candace Owens thinks this guy was assassinated and she doesn't believe in the official story, then why is she endorsing his goofy wife and saying she had powerful words when the rest of us can see through it, right? Like, why would you do that? And then you're going to come in and say it's Netanyahu and that Charlie was about to turn on Israel. And everybody who around him knew it. And his wife would have known it even more so. And they were trying to handle him. They were trying to buy him off. They were trying to get him to go to Israel and take photo shoots. And he was having exchanges with Netanyahu and these other people. And so they were concerned about it. And Israel does shit like this, right? Israel has assassinated people, American people. There's ties to the whole Kennedy thing, the JFK thing in Israel. And there's ties to Israel and the big event in 2001. Not concrete ties, but enough that you can say, hey, there's something there. And so if Candace Owens is saying that there's, they were pressuring him and now they're lying about him and they're pretending something's not there, and Netanyahu's going on a widow tour and trying to express his whatever it is, then, why the fuck is his wife not speaking up about that? Why is it the people that are part of Turning Point? And why are, and if Israel was involved, then Trump knows about it. And why is Trump, not? I mean, Trump just posted this Israeli flag. I'll say something about that as well. I have to go back and show that as well when I show the thing. Trump did the Israeli flag, which you've already seen, that thing. And so he posted a picture of him and Charlie Kirk, an American flag, an Israeli flag on Truth Social. So, which you've seen because I've gone back and added that. But why not Trump? Why not hammer Trump? Because Trump is obviously owned by Epstein and Mossad and Israel because of his implications with that. I mean, that's part of the story. And then, Netanyahu and all this stuff as well. Okay, so it was 10:45, 10:15, 10:40, I think it was 10:45. And my wife had was concerned about her iron levels. As you get older, you have higher iron levels, and one of the ways to get rid of that is to draw blood. And so she signed herself up to draw blood. She asked me if I want to go, and I said yes, why not? And I thought I could get all of this in before we went, but some things came up, whatever it was, and so we, usually I'd be pretty much done by my making the content part of this video, I'd be in the editing process around 11 o'clock or so, depending on the day. But certainly I thought I would get through all the parts of the video that you saw. I just made the part about the, Trump posting him and Charlie Kirk with the Israeli flag, American flag. And we went to draw blood, and I had we got there, and the person, we signed up for 11:15, and a person got there like right before we did, and that guy was out probably 45 minutes before we were. So like it was us, we had to sit there for a while. I got a trainee to do the intake for me, and also another trainee who put the needle in me and drew the blood. And the person who was watching her was of Indian descent. And, it kept on beeping because my blood was coming out slow. And she was like saying, well, he probably has a small vein. And I had been told over and over again, including, and I think people in my family, this is a thing, that we have good veins. And so I never had issues with them drawing blood before. So the woman backed out the needle a little bit, and then it started to go quickly. And then I started to feel dizzy. And she went to give me some fucking electrolytes instead of ending. I was close to giving a pint. And I didn't know for my wife you can stop it anytime you want it. And she gave me this electrolytes, and it tasted like fucking like Kool-Aid. And they had all kinds of shitty food there I was never going to eat, right? And then was like saying, no, I think you should really drink that. I'm like, I'm not fucking putting that in my body. And I was looking around. I'm like, Jesus Christ, all these people look sickly and older than me. And they're in worse shape. And I'm like, this is what the kind of blood you're going to get? Like if I'm, I'm 62 and I'm looking around going, I don't want anybody, I wouldn't want anybody's blood in here, right? So then she finished, and I got up, and, I had to sit there for a while. She wanted me to eat food, but I'm like, I'm not eating that crappy food. It's going to make me sick. And so my wife and I had gone to a shawarma place close by. Maybe we went 6 months ago. It was pretty good, but we don't go to this area. There was a bunch of Greek food, and we thought about getting some gyros, but we liked the shawarma place. We went back, and it was horrible. Like the place was empty, clearly going out of business. And the shawarma sucked. I'm like, shawarma sucks. Usually I'm hungry, and I'm just in a daze. Like the time from when I got up out of the chair to the time we got home, it was like a dream. I was lightheaded, and then I came home, and I'm like, we went for a little bit of walk, and then we walked our dogs, and then I had to lie down. And so now it's 3:21. We got home, it was like 1. And I'm still a little bit, I don't want to say lightheaded. The reason I said it was an Indian woman, because I said, I'm getting lightheaded, and she said, you have a light headache. The way she said it sounded like, I don't know, I'm lightheaded, so, which I knew was a common side effect, but anyways, I'm out of it. And so it's completely not ideal, but I'm going to try to remember what I was going to say. And I think I was about to say, or I know I was going to say something along these lines. Trump and, these people, if this thing is fake, right? This is what I said about Trump when he faked his assassination attempt. If this thing is fake, any part of it, like they're going to know more than we do, right? Anybody over at Turning Point, because it's I think it's a organization like an Alex Jones type organization. They have people involved, right? They have editors, they have camera people, they have, whatever they do. And the guy's wife, everybody over there knows. Well, one of the things was, I covered her yesterday going on this show that was Summer House. It was filmed in the Hamptons. And Charlie Kirk went to the Hamptons, according to Candace Owens, and was making, a deal with these Jewish guys, or these guys were trying to pressure him and pay him off to get him not to turn and say that Israel was a part of this whole thing. And, a lot of people are saying this, and Candace Owens said this some months ago. A lot of these guys are turning on Israel, and, if they suspect any part of it isn't true, that we're being lied to by any part of it, that this kid is just a patsy, whatever the things are, he's not really dead, whatever you think, right? But, this thing definitely, I've been watching this for a while, and what I'm good at is pattern recognition. And they put out these, they roll out these things day after day. It's a story they want you to see, and there's a pattern of it. And they're always got an agenda, right? Usually when it's run by the left, it's a gun control agenda. And it's run by the right, it's about, hate speech for, they're already talking about this. The martial law stuff Trump's already doing. and also the distraction from Epstein and some of these other things, right? There's things that they're getting out of it. There's things that were negative that Trump was going through, that he was on the defensive for, and now he's on the attack. Like I said, I'll show you that video in a moment. And so if any part of it's, a fake, then everybody who's involved with it, including his wife, and especially Trump, they're in on it, right? Like, this isn't happening, some deep state thing that's happening underneath what they're doing. Because if it was a deep state Democratic move to take out a conservative voice, then Trump is supposed to be in there to stop that shit, right? Like, as president, he can't call it out and stop it, right? And so, and his wife should be saying, yeah, this doesn't add up. These are the things, she should be speaking truth to. I mean, if she really is upset about who killed her husband, but if she goes back and then she gets money from Israel and she starts pushing the anti-Palestine, Israeli agenda, just like Netanyahu was saying that it was they killed them, and he said it was Muslim hate speech, liberal people, whatever, these people, that he was, not just whatever the person that did it. But if Israel is involved in this, and Candace Owens wouldn't say that because, they live in this idea that they have to prove it factually. And like I was saying earlier, you got to get to a point where without facts. Like, and not some where people just say, I know what it is, and they're just stupid, and they just run around, making impulsive, emotional conclusions. But I mean, like, you look at people, they're lying. You look at people, there's just something that happens. And, you don't need to prove it factually to yourself. And then you can talk about it being speculation, which it is, because, people can't take your word for it. I mean, they can, but it's not ideal for them. Like, each person needs to be able to discern these things for themselves. But if you're going to call bullshit on, some part of this operation, then Trump and the wife and the whole people are part of it. And so, like, that's why, I guess J.D. Vance went on Tucker Carlson, and he also said he talked about going after people. You can't, it's a move where they're going after American citizens. And whether they're people you agree with or not, when they start doing that, then you lose all your rights. And Trump clearly wants to take away your rights, and this is part of what he's doing. People like looking for details here and money here, and that's a good thing. I used to do that more in my videos, and I'm fine with people doing that. But, facts can be manufactured and can be misinterpreted or any of these things. But we do know that there is an unhealthy relationship between America and Israel. We know Israel's going for it, and they're bombing all kinds of fucking countries, and they're taking over Palestine. And there's a lot of people, including Charlie Kirk and his whole group, that were defending Israel, just like Trump is, and giving them a blank check to do whatever the fuck they want. And if Charlie Kirk decided not to do that anymore, and the left would already turned on Israel, and this would have, these were the people that put Trump over the hump, and there's a lot of anti-Israeli people, anti-Zionist people in the truth community. It's possible they, as a governmental agency that does shit like this all the time, that Israel and then therefore the United States could be involved in his assassination. If he's dead at all. I mean, there's all, it's a mess. You're not going to get to the bottom of any of it. And if that's the case, then his wife is fucking going along with it, right? And she's, I mean, maybe even signed off on it. Like, who even knows what kind of relationship they have or what the real thing is, I also saw a video clip of them talking about the origins of their marriage. So let me show you the Trump thing. I'm going to make this video probably shorter because of I'm just lightheaded. I feel weird. Anyways, let's wrap this one up here. Okay, so I just saw this. This is pretty fucked.
Attorney General Pam Bondi is facing some criticism over her recent comments about hate speech. Here's what she said on the Katie Miller podcast yesterday.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society. We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Yeah, you're going to call what you do. Trump would be busted every day. Because, what you're calling hate speech here is something Trump does all the time and the right does all the time, right?
While hate speech can be offensive, it is generally protected by the First Amendment, and a number of conservatives were quick to call Bondi out on that.
Yeah, today the Attorney General seemed to clarify her remarks, writing, quote, hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. This morning, President Trump was asked about Bondi's remarks. Listen to this.
What do you make Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is that, I mean, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
Should probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC. Well, ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right?
Holy shit. So he's making it about him. You know, Charlie Kirk's like not even buried yet, right? Like, holy shit, right? You Trumpers, like, how can you be a Trumper after you just said that stuff? So myopic, so narcissistic, and so anti-American. How can you call yourself a patriot and be aboard with this shit, right? Brutal.
Company paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech, so maybe they'll have to go after you.
Okay, did he actually say something hateful? Holy shit, right? So, you know, I talked about this for a long time. It's the Sajmark teachings are the best on this. And, you know, well, let me put up the meme. Let's watch a little bit more of that, and then I'll put up the meme and do a little voiceover.
Let's talk about this with CNN senior political analyst Ron Brownstein, an opinion columnist for Bloomberg, and Jeff Angelo, a conservative radio host. Thank you both.
Okay, fuck these guys. Let me go to this other thing. Okay, so it seems like he had Tucker Carlson on his show. I have a clip of that. I was going to conclude that. I don't think I'm going to include that in today's video because I'm a little bit overwhelmed and, you know, I'm not feeling as good as I normally would. But I want to cover this part, the hate speech part. So he's hosting Charlie Kirk's fucking show, right?
Come out with Stephen a little bit and talk about
this fucking guy.
All of the ways that we're trying to figure out how to prevent this festering violence that you see on the far left from becoming even more and more mainstream. A lot of people are very worried about how we got here in the first place. And you have the crazies on the far left who are saying, oh, Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance, they're going to go after constitutionally protected speech. No, we're going to go after the NGO network that foments, facilitates, and engages in violence. That's not okay. Violence is not okay.
That's not what Trump said. Trump said that anything that's a form of hate speech, anybody criticizing him, is hateful speech because your heart's full of hate. And so...
system, and we want to make it less likely that that happens. Walk me through.
Okay, so, you know, they're all in on it, right? So, you know, J.D. Vance, I mean, I don't think anybody really believes everything that's coming out now. I don't think the Kirk people believe it. I don't think, you know, Charlie Kirk fans believe it. I don't think the majority of Americans do. So, wherever you are on that, as soon as you realize they're lying to you about someone's death, a public figure's death, you know, going all the way back to JFK, all these motherfuckers are involved in the cover-up because they know more than we do, right? Like, you think they don't have conversations behind closed doors about like what really happened or how do we get our story straight? Of course they do. They know they're being handled, and if they don't, they shouldn't be in political office because they're too fucking stupid, you know, wherever it is. So that's what I was saying about Tucker Carlson, all these people. Of course, they're part of it as well. But, you know, anybody going out and saying, hey, this is bullshit, then it's all bullshit, right? Everybody's complicit. Because now it's turned into an operation to grab something from you. It's not about Charlie Kirk. It's not about his family. It's not about the right-wing Christians. It's about them taking something from Americans. Trump already has martial law going on. He's already given a blank check to Israel, amongst other things. And so they're going after you, right? So let me talk about the hate thing here. Let me show you this image of Master Chardy, the third master of Sajmark system. Whenever you hate something, look into yourself and try to find it and remove it. From within, then you will not hate anything anymore. When you're afraid of something, look into yourself, remove it from inside, and you will not be afraid of anything in the universe after that. And so this is a unique perspective from the Sajmark system, because there is a cleaning process, and then there's using your will to get rid of things inside of yourself that you don't want. Addictions and any number of things, right? Through the help of the divine system and the, Pranhuiti, this transmission, this God's love energy that's given to you when you have these individual cities. It's about removing things inside yourself and replacing them with God's love. And having the strength and fortitude by developing your will force to actually just take things inside yourself and remove them. And so it's a unique perspective. And I've talked about this in many videos, because even if you enjoy hating, it makes you a piece of shit person. Like if you're a hateful person, that hate doesn't stop. The hate's inside of you. That's the first thing. Like hate is inside of you. The object of your hate, whether it be Charlie Kirk or Trump or Joe Biden or your mother-in-law or your, boss or whatever it is, right? The object of your hate is outside of you, and the hate is still there inside you. If that person dies or disappears or leaves your life, right, you still have hate inside of you. So you have an object of your hate, which you think is responsible for the hate, but the hate's inside you. A person without hate inside of them doesn't have people outside in which they hate, right? So it's something internal. And when you're indulging in hate and anger, and like unnatural anger, unnatural fear, because fear and anger are natural. There's reasons to have those things. Sometimes they can be appropriate in certain circumstances, but hate is never appropriate. And so it's not appropriate to a spiritual person, because everything in your life comes from God. And so in the Sajmark system, if somebody shows up in your life and you hate them, they're doing you a service. Miseries is divine blessings, and don't be revengeful for the wrongs done by others. Treat them like heavenly gifts and be grateful. Those are two of the maxims. Because they're exposing something inside yourself that's blocking your connection to God. And hate, it's something that when you get yourself into a hateful state, it affects your family, it affects your job, performance, it affects your life. And it's just like they say, being resentful is like swallowing a poison pill and expecting your enemy to die, right? And so in the Sajmark system, this guy Charji went to his, the second master system, Babaji. He's like, I just hate this guy at work. And Charji was well along, he was being prepared spiritually to succeed Babaji as the master of the system. And Babaji said, oh, you can't do that. Especially in your state. I mean, no one should do it, but especially given that you're such a high spiritual state, it'll ruin your whole inner condition. Like everything that you've worked for and that Babaji had worked to help him achieve spiritually would be contaminated by feeling hatred. He said, you have to go inside, find the hate, remove it, and throw it out. You can't allow yourself, Charges like, I just hate this guy at work. I just look at him, I hate him. You know how it is when you feel hate, right? So, everybody who feels hate realizes that it feels sucky to feel hateful. And also, it affects the world and everything else, right? And it's a very unique perspective. But, what they want to do is try to suppress hate, which makes it even worse, right? Like there's so much hate that, they say they don't want hate speech, but Trump is one of the most divisive people, the most divisive person I've seen in American culture. He has people that love him, people that hate him, and he does very hateful things. He's a very hateful person. He's filled with hate. He's filled with anger and arrogance and all these things. He's resentment. He's filled with envy. He's got all the lower qualities. And he's being used as a catalyst to create a divide and conquer civil war. Like we all know that. They want you to hate. They say they don't, but they fucking want you to hate. Right? It's fucking, silly. They're making you hate, and then they impose restrictions. They take away your freedoms because you're a hateful person and you're going to do violence, right? Violence, I mean, every time somebody does violence or protests, the other side gets more power, right? This thing with Charlie Kirk, the left has lost a lot of power, just like when the left would do these fake false flag bullshit things, they would take power from the right. It's because they're using victim consciousness, and you acting out poorly, and then making it a blanket statement about everyone who believes what you believe, and then eventually making it a blanket statement about all humanity, that we have to control your behaviors. This is always about more and more control. And so every time somebody acts out, whether it's real or fake, they grab more power and more control. They impose more rules, and they go after people. And this is what's happening here. When, if they really were against hate, they would find the system, the Sajmar, the gratefulness meditation that we do, and engage in the process of removing the hate from internally in their internal system. And, it fucking works. I can say, I used to feel all kinds of negative things. I used to be a very angry person. I say mean things here that you can categorize them as mean. It's just me being truthful. I'm not angry at these people. I don't even dislike them. I mean, if I dislike them, I wouldn't, I can only cover so much of the stuff I dislike. Like I said, watching Candace Owens, I don't dislike her as a, some kind of I feel anger towards her. I just don't like listening to her, right? I don't like listening to Charlie Kirk. I don't like listening to Joe Biden. Where Joe Biden was, of course, easier to mock because he'd say fucked up, funny shit. But it's hard for me to listen to these people. It's hard for me to listen to the news because it's it has no value to me because it's just full of lies and bullshit. Anyways, let's get back to it here. So he had RFK Jr. on here. This is Tucker Carlson. A little bit of this at the beginning.
This because I wrote about it on X.com. But when X.com was Twitter, I did an interview.
Wait, what's called Twitter? What happened? Why is it called X then? Twitter sounds like a pretty catchy phrase. Damn.
With the Tucker Carlson Tonight Show on Fox News. And I got a message from a guy named Charlie Kirk that said, "You did a great job. I really liked what you said. And let's keep in touch." And that began the start of my friendship with Charlie Kirk. That was the first time I had ever communicated with Charlie Kirk. So you've known him for a long time. You talked to him about a lot of issues. And I want to talk in part about how to honor Charlie's legacy because I think...
Well, you'd find out that people actually fucking killed him and the plot behind it. And you get rid of those fucking people and you expose the truth. And you wouldn't cover the shit up and you wouldn't be fucking licking Netanyahu's taint and these things on whatever, his involvement or whatever it is. That'd be the first way you'd honor him, right? By telling the fucking truth.
I think that he modeled civil discourse within the right. He accepted there were big disagreements on all these issues, but he thought we were all on the same team and we could debate this stuff, but actually have a drink at the end of the day and recognize that we were...
You guys were alcoholics then, right? I'm always amazed, and maybe you guys drink, I don't know. I stopped drinking and using any kind of drugs and shit when I was like 24, 25. And then never drank again. And never used any drugs. And then to the point where I had a surgery in 2017, 18. They put me on Oxycontin. And it fucking, it wrecked me. It was bad. And I had to get off it. I went on Valium, which was a little bit better. The pain was just so bad because of the fucking, I had to take something initially, but just brutal. And I wonder if I could have toughed it out. I don't know. Either way, I don't believe in that kind of shit because of the meditation and distortion of reality. But these guys drink all the time. And you see it in TV shows and movies. Louis C.K. did a bit where he says, who are these people who go have a martini at lunch and then go back to work, right? It's like, as you get older, I can't even imagine that shit, right? Just like I'm wrecked because I gave fucking blood today. I might have to change my whole day. I had to rearrange everything. I take an hour nap and, I'm feeling a little better for doing this thing, but I definitely feel weaker and all this stuff. Anyways, let's see what Tucker Carlson says here briefly, and then we'll move on.
To the way he thought of other people, which was always primarily as people first. And that was, he was much younger than I am, and I met him when he was a teenager, so he's literally the age of one of my children, so.
Donald Trump Jr.
It was kind of hard.
So he must be like 6'6", right? Tucker Carlson's probably like 6'1". Donald Trump Jr. is like probably 6'2", 6'3". So he's like 6'6", and that old fucking guy was challenging him to a fucking, it's silly. I covered a video where this old guy challenged to a fight. One of my viewers said that the guy was in a Freemasonic stance, which I didn't feel like I wanted to go back and look at, but that would be interesting. Anyways, this is just, again, if you want to honor somebody, then tell the fucking truth, right? Okay, Charlie and Erica, this came up while I was at the blood bank. I didn't get a chance to watch it.
I met Erica for the first time at this office, Turning Point USA office.
So we met at the office opening, the Turning Point headquarters office opening, the first one, August 2018, and I had no idea what to expect because I was coming into the office from the standpoint of they were potentially going to hire me.
And I knew of Erica, I saw Erica, and we had a very brief meeting at the office, and then I had my first conversation with Erica.
He'll tell it differently, so I'll tell you from my side. I was in the Hamptons. I get a random DM.
So again, the Hamptons, right? So this is somebody who's, they live in Arizona now. She was Miss Arizona, but she went on a reality show in the Hamptons. And he met with some guy in the Hamptons, some power broker for Israel very recently. I can't express the Hamptons enough, what kind of people that are there. It's the elite of the elite, right? He goes out to these college campuses, and his viewers, for the most part, he's a big money person. She's a big jewelry person. They're into money. They're money people. And I'm sure he has some wealthy people who are part of his fan base, but he's reaching out to the common folk. But these guys all hobnob together, right? These people who are ultra wealthy, this the kind of money that Trump used to kowtow to, right? Those kind of people.
On my phone. I have zero service when I'm out there, and all of a sudden this DM flashes up and it's like, Charlie Kirk DM'd you. Because it's so Charlie. August 31st, 2018. Hey, shoot me a text at, and gave me his number. I didn't respond for a few days.
Why that? Why was that?
Instagram messaged her and said I urgently needed to meet with her. And she said, why? And it was part.
So you're lying. That's not what it said at all. Your wife just called you a fucking liar. She called you a liar. She read the text. You got fact-checked by your wife.
Partially a job interview and also partially something else.
So when I eventually messaged him back via text, I was like, hey, nice to officially meet you again. What did you want to talk about? Because it was so just random. And he was like, hey, I'm coming into town, into New York City. Let's meet at Bill's Burgers. Mind you,
Bill's Burgers. See, she's a regular. She's New York City, right? Because she's doing things that are New York City, modeling, acting, trying to get on reality TV shows, right?
I've lived in Manhattan now for about 5 years. I've never eaten at Bill's Burgers before, so
Manhattan.
That, I guess, was a sign, like, let's take an adventure tonight for dinner and go find Bill's Burgers and meet your future husband that you have no idea is about to be your future husband.
And so then we had a great time, and it was about 15 minutes in, I quickly pivoted away from wanting to hire her to wanting to date her, and now we know how that worked quite well.
He got there first only because he was coming back from Fox, and he kind of beat me there. And I got out of my taxi, and we get our table, we sit down, and he orders. The thing that I love though is he was so sweet to the waitress. So that was something.
In fact, she banged her, but that's
Thing that I immediately noticed, that he was like really kind to them. And we ordered our food, and then that's when the grilling started happening. Like, that's when the interview process started happening. So I'm like, okay, this is a legit interview. Like, let's go. I'm glad I had my coffee. Like, I'm ready to debate you about Aristotle and Socrates, and you want to talk about theology? Let's do it.
Okay. She's competitive with him. I went back. I remember this. I didn't comment on it when I first saw it, but I thought about it. She wanted, let's go. Let's debate. Let me see. She was like, show me, Now, there's a couple of things here. They're lying about, the way that this generation and all the younger generations interact with people is they check people out online, right? People put up their dating profiles on Instagram and Facebook, right? All the ways that they market themselves. And she was somebody who had her own platform, and he saw her, and I'm sure that she's a former Miss Arizona, and she's a Christian woman, so he was attracted to her. So bringing her in for an interview was a way to break the ice. A little less creepy than doing what he did. He's not saying that, right? And she knew who he was, and she was willing to date some gay dude to get on a reality TV show in the Hamptons. And so I'm sure they both had mutual interests, right? And she said that, like, was this a date? Is this a thing? You know, so he framed it as a job interview, but also a date. You know, weird stuff. But it's just very contrived, right? Like, it's everything about them is like trying to be this perfect couple and marketing themselves as that. But she clearly is not like a good Christian wife. And what I mean by that is, you know, my ex was very liberal, went to Wellesley College, very liberal, very competitive with men, you know, these kind of things. But when she started doing the meditation, you know, she was an obsessive personality. And she got into the ancient Indian philosophy of the, you know, the way that women would be in India. And, you know, Master Charji talked about this, you know, the way women would lead from behind. You know, they would guide their husbands, but without stepping on his ego. You know, the husband would walk out in front, but the woman was really the mastermind of the family in different ways, especially in social circumstances and things, and would support their husbands in ways. But my ex, you know, she really couldn't do it because it was artificial. But she learned a lot about it. And she then learned about all these very conservative Christian women. And she was in a number of conservative Christian women, including one group that had women that wore head coverings and things, like really, you know, conservative Christian women. And you could see that she wanted to debate him. Like, she watched his shows and she wanted to debate him. She's saying that. Well, let's go. Let's debate these things. You know, she has her own opinions. And so, like I said, she is reeking. It's like ambition is pouring out of every pore of her body. She's an ambitious person. And she wasn't content with just sitting behind him and being his doting wife. And so whatever deal was struck or whatever she was doing, you know, in that marriage, like her being more a part of the, you know, the celebrity that her husband was. Like, there's women who are feminists, and she hung out with those women, you know, who are very competitive with their husbands. You know, couples that are trying to one up each other. And she clearly is indicating, like, she let something slip here. Like, you know, that's part of what she wanted to do. Like, not this woman who wanted to, you know, celebrate her husband's greatness. And I'm not commenting on what thing I think is better or not. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's such a shit show. I don't care about these things. But I know about them. Like, I know about these various, you know, I'm not a relationship person. I'm not a, you know, I just go with the flow. You know, I've learned to be effective in relationships. And that's mostly through gratitude, right? By being grateful. And that's, like, to me, the most important thing. As long as you remember to be grateful and look for gratitude in your spouse and your other relationships, then you'll have positive relationships. But anyway, you know, she was very competitive. So there's one thing here to wrap up. But, you know, this thing is everything with these guys is so fake, right?
Well, I'd never met anyone quite like her. I remember I called Tyler and I said he's going to have to find talent.
Right, I just can't, yeah. You get the idea here. You know, like I said, if this was true love, then Erica would have to go after if she was truly a vengeful, you know, righteous widow, and she knew that Israel was trying to, you know, pull him in, and he was changing on that, then she would start talking about that, right? Like, as part of it. Like, she wouldn't stay silent unless they bought her off, and then, you know, that's blood money. That's Judas money, right? Like, anything if Israel was involved and Israel was trying to silence him, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people on the right and, you know, the people who were fans of his are saying this. And so, you know, it's either true or it's not true. And if it's true, or he was just about to break from Israel, I mean, he was going to, you know, change his tune, then she has to honor that, right? If she wants to honor him, because he was going through something. Like, he was going through a crisis. He was praying to the rosary, according to Candace Owens. So, you know, let's move on to the next thing here. The person that Candace Owens named was Bill Ackman, who was a billionaire, you know, Israeli shill, you know, like in the mold of Epstein, right? An Epstein guy who was, you know, there was also some idea that he was being threatened. And, like, you know, there was pressure. So I searched to see if they had a house in the Hamptons, you know, because they have Hampton House money now. Charlie Kirk. But, you know, when you look at Erica Kirk, she wanted to be an actress and a model. And you can see her acting skills. You see her acting, you know, like she liked that gay dude on the reality TV show. You see her being very performative in the, you know, like they have skills as public speakers. And you have to put on a persona. You know, he had a Fox News persona, and then was persona when he goes out and speaks to these kids on college campus. You play a role. You do this. Everyone almost does this at work. And so, you know, was this something that was like some acting, you know, part that they had? You know, were they really together? I mean, all these things. You never know. But whatever the thing is, you know, if you're going to honor the guy like everyone says they are, then speak the fucking truth, right? Like, get to the bottom of it, not some bullshit, you know, individual guy who got disgruntled and posted on, you know, whatever it was, right? These chat rooms and whatever. But this thing here, let's watch this with Aaron Burnett.
An apparent confession. The alleged killer of Charlie Kirk reportedly confessing to the assassination just hours before his arrest. According to the Washington Post, Tyler Robinson posted an online message at 7:57 p.m. on Thursday, telling friends, quote, "Hey guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this." Now that message was posted on Discord.
Okay, so is he sorry? I'm sorry for all this to his friends? It's a weird thing to say, right? Why would anybody post something like that? You know, you want to get away with things. You know, I mean, there's people who just wouldn't murder anybody. Like I said, you know, like if you take responsibility for your negative emotions, you know, when you have hatred and you work to locate the hatred and throw it out of your internal system, which sounds like probably crazy for people who don't meditate, but once you build your will force up and you kind of have a knowledge of your internal system, you know, there's something that you can do. Like when I feel shitty, you know, I just throw it out. When I'm starting to have victim thoughts and, you know, negative thoughts, you know how you get negative thoughts, you can start imagining things that aren't real or exaggerating slights that people do to you. You know, that's why I've been able to stay on YouTube so long. YouTube has treated me like shit, like just horribly. And not just me and everybody. And it's not even personal because they've done it to not just truthers, but all kinds of people. You know, just like this whole thing with, you know, this Teespring T-shirt company just fucked me out of, and you know, to some extent, you guys who bought merch, out of $1,800. And, you know, I have to then decide whether I'm going to invest more time and energy into trying to get money that I'm probably never going to see, and then how angry I could be about it. Like I could fume about it and think about it all the time. You know, I could just get obsessed with it. But, you know, then they took my money and they've affected my attitude, right? And so, you know, it's just, for those of you who don't know, I have merch, and I still have to take down that site because I don't want people buying more merch for them. Because they owe me another $30, $35. There was $35 since the time I cashed out. I mean, but they just absolutely suck in that whole thing. You know, they're horrible people. You know, it's a defunct organization. And YouTube is using them, allowing them to post stores on their platform, which is why people use them in the first place. And YouTube won't take any responsibility in getting rid of them, even though they fuck people out of money. But, you know, I could be hateful and angry towards them, you know, all the time and have negative thoughts. But, I mean, it doesn't hurt them, right? So, you know, it's something that actually works. But, you know, people have these kind of conditions and they act out on them. After you do something in a moment of passion, then you start worrying about going to jail, right? I mean, that would be the next logical step. But this guy is confessing all over the place, turning himself in, confessing to his parents. And, you know, I mean, they all do. Like, why are they all caught within a couple of days? Why do they leave a trail of evidence? So just briefly here.
You have no idea what you have unleashed. In moments, we'll play Erica's full remarks. First, joining us now with reaction to Erica's powerful tribute to her husband, Outkick founder Clay Travis, Outkick host Riley Gaines. I said this to both of you the other night, and I meant it.
It's kind of dudeish.
Like Charlie, you are two people that go into these hostile arenas, these college campuses, these indoctrination centers.
Indoctrination centers. you know, like I said, the right has gotten way worse than the left. Trump is getting away with things Biden could never get away with, and the martial law, posse comitatus, and these other things. And, you know, the right is going to be blamed for this. So, you know, I said this when the left was doing it. You know, what happens when the right takes power again? What happens when Trump gets his second term? Like, nobody thinks about that. Like, none of these people who are not a part of the people who are overseeing this, the controllers, but individual people are like, they're going to retaliate, right? The right's going to retaliate. And what happens when the left takes over after Trump does all this shit? What kind of fucking suppression of free speech you're going to see on the internet imposed by the left? What is the left going to do with martial law powers? And so when you have power and you don't kill your adversary, which they're not going to, then this swings back to the other side. And when you're in this idea that both sides are clearly convinced the other side's evil, I'm not talking about the people in the higher positions that are, orchestrating this. I'm talking about the average dumb fuck out there. And you're just going to see the stuff swing back and forth, and it's going to escalate more and more over time, right? The free speech suppression under the left, which sucked, a lot of us suffer from it. It's going to be worse now with Trump on the right, and then goes back and forth and all of it. And so, they're playing everybody. Like, they're playing everybody who believes in this, in the Republicans and the Democrats, as a real thing. And so one more thing here. I don't think there's any new news. Okay. So let's go back to the beginning here. Why is this starting at 48? All right, here we go. This is Vice President J.D. Vance remembers Charlie Kirk, Miller, Tucker, RFJ, Levitt, Caroline Levitt, Wills, RFK Jr. And so this is the 2-hour and 5-minute broadcast that J.D. Vance did in terms of Charlie Kirk. So they put together this piece already. I know they have fans, and this wife's got martyr money, and they want to use this guy as a martyr now, and they got a mission and a controlled thing here that they're pushing for. But it seems like this guy is not going to be able to be replaced because of the way that he was in terms of his debating skills and the things that he did, right? And, when you die, it doesn't matter whether they give you a statue or a nice funeral. Like, once you leave your body, you don't give a fuck about the earth. The people you love, you have some love bond with. And if you're filled with hatred and rage and these things, you can't go forward because you're bound to planet Earth because you've gone south. That's another matter. But the best thing you do is pray that the person goes to the highest level that they can, and that they, or they come back and incarnate back again, work more on whatever they have to work on. But these things aren't important to the person themselves, right? It's important to the people who are left behind.
We're talking to so many voters that know it is time for change. They know that something is wrong. America's future is a series of choices. Our current state of slow motion national decline is a choice.
It's not a choice. It's an overall choice, but it's what the system does, right? See, if any of these people are going to tell you the truth, which they don't, God is not interested in politics or America or Russia or England or Venezuela or any country. They're the people, the beings that control the planet. Higher developed souls, what people would think of as angels, that look for ways to move humanity forward. There's things that have to happen. Divine interventions, and just things have to end. But none of those things that are materialistic in nature have anything to do with God. They're with, they're your egotistical creations. The government, all these things that they do. That's why they're so heavy. If you spirituality doesn't do good in capital cities, like Washington, D.C., or any capital city, because politics just contaminates the spiritual condition there, right? The only thing you can do is have very spiritual people build a system that adheres to divine laws and based in natural principles and divine principles. And so the whole system is a reflection of divinity, but our system's nothing like that. So it's doomed to failure, and if you're a godly person, you kind of have to hope that it happens. Even though it'll hurt all of us and our children and grandchildren materially, it's a necessary, destruction that takes away a demonic system based in egoism and brings about something better, right? A divine system. That's why I say only spirituality will save this world. But anyways, let's go forward here.
Today is our 2-year-old's birthday. And I look at my daughter, and that is my why. For those that are parents, you know exactly what I mean.
There is no mountain that stands.
Oh, Jesus. I want to move forward to the, again, who's taking this picture? Was this a prop, the hat? And, these things, who's taking these pictures, right? Like, this is a private moment. Like they're selling the relationship. Let's edit this out. So these are all these pictures. And so, if he had broken from another one, so they have a lot of these pictures, right? These are Instagram pictures, and they've made this, like, this soul leaving there's a soul going up into heaven. But Trump's a piece of shit. He's an ungodly, devilish, demonic piece of shit. And he is tied to the hip with Israel. Here we go, here with
When we were starting these out, and
it was like that.
It was like this. It was like your average
first 3 rows.
It was like your average political meeting where there was like 12 people in a room, and this is awesome.
Okay, so that guy, fucking Donald Trump Jr. is worse than Trump. But Trump is tied to the hip by Israel. So as long as, here we go.
Opinion was the most over-the-top Trump event that I've ever covered.
This is the #1 boots on the ground operation in the country. We're working directly in harmony with the Trump campaign. It's been vetted, it's been cleared, it's been blessed, as you could see there. And we're going to try to win this thing. No guarantees. It's what we do that matters.
Mr.
It's what they do.
President, I can tell you this room is 100% with you, and we have your back. God bless you.
The guy turned out to be a piece of shit. Now, Trump has pushed so many things that so-called Republican truth or patriots would have been, like, enraged if the Democrats were doing it. It's core principles. Posse comitatus, increasing government, get involved with foreign governments on various things, blank check to Israel. I mean, so many things. I can't even list them all. I can't remember them all. And, covering up for Epstein. I mean, all this shit. Trump has failed on all these things. And the rest of these people are starting to bail on this guy. The rest of his contemporaries, Candace Owens and Joe Rogan and certainly Tucker Carlson. And so, he failed. Like, this was the wrong thing. It didn't work. Trump didn't make America great again. Trump didn't do the things that they thought he was going to do. In fact, he's fucking destroyed it, right? And even if Trump didn't do that, it would be destroyed anyway, because there's no solution to, $40 trillion in governmental debt, $100 trillion in collective debt, and $120 trillion or $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities that aren't even a part of the budget. I mean, there's just nothing to, America's fucked. Like, we've been fucked, and that's just financially, never mind morally and the rest of it. And so this is all about conditioning you to accept a worse deal. And so, like, this was failure. Like, whatever he did here, whether it's sincere or whatever, it didn't deliver. Trump didn't deliver.
Campus here momentarily at the University of South Florida, throwing it down with the students. It's going to.
All right, so there's this guy here.
Or gotten worse since the Department of Education was formed.
It has literally been 3 months. I have absolutely no idea.
Since the Department of Education was formed in the 70s. We now have 50 years of evidence. Has American education gotten better since we've had a Department of Education?
Well, it certainly hasn't gotten better since he put Linda McMahon in charge of it, and she's trying to destroy the Department of Education, and she's turning when she was asked about what they were going to do, she called AI A1. She didn't even know what fucking AI is. And then moral wrestling. So, yeah, the Department of Education, like all these departments, are corrupt. But like I've said all the time, even if you have the worst government, if you just destroy the government, you're worse off. Like even the worst government's better than chaos. And so, so when you just start destroying shit like Trump and Elon Musk were doing, anyways, we know all this. As bad as the Democrats are. So here's J.D. Vance with this guy. I want to see what he has. These three guys.
Who we're from California. And
I don't know what they are. Let's go through this thing here. Showing
jobs in states like Texas. They pay $13 billion annually in taxes, including $2 billion to Social Security that they can't claim. Deporting them would slash agricultural output by.
Of course, in honor of my dear friend Charlie. And, I wanted to be like Marco Rubio. I wanted to add an extra job here as the radio host and vice president here in the West Wing, here in the White House complex. But I have another person here who wears many hats and is one of the most gifted communicators I've ever seen, right up there with the great Charlie Kirk. I'm glad to be joined by Carolyn Levitt, our press secretary. Carolyn, so good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Very kind. I appreciate your saying that.
So why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit. So those who don't know, who are listening or watching, you actually were involved with TPUSA very early on when you were in college. Tell me about that experience and about getting to know Charlie Kirk through that forum.
Sure. Well, I'm a Gen Z conservative, so I was really raised with...
Okay, so she's going to start talking about her faith. I just can't sit through this. And here's RFK Jr.
Which was his idea.
There's been studies that have done that also counteract that. Illegal immigrants.
So more aligned, given your name. You were a scion of one of the great political families on the Democratic side in American history. But now you're one of the most important members of the administration in a Republican administration. Maybe talk, if you would, just a little bit about Charlie's approach to politics and how it ultimately made you one of the most important people in the federal government.
Yeah, well, Charlie was probably the primary architect of my unification with President Trump. I actually announced my endorsement of President Trump at a Turning Point rally in Arizona.
Okay, so Jesus Christ. Just an absolute mess, all this stuff. And a central figure, and all these people are complicit, right? Because we know there's bullshit going on. We know the official story is just not accurate because it follows a pattern of other bullshit stories. And like I said, we're not going to get the exact truth. They're not going to confess. People are going to come up with different, interpretations. And is he really dead or alive? Or, did Israel do it? Or, whoever. But, I always said before, like I said, when I made my first video and I knew nothing about this guy. You always look at who something benefits. It doesn't benefit the left at all. In fact, the left is on their heels. And they were getting rid of Trump. They were going after Trump on Epstein. Trump, his wife, and Netanyahu are some of the big winners. And all the people who want, the right-wing people who want to go full out and attack the liberals, they all are winners in this thing, right? And so, I got a comment here. Let me read the comment. Okay, so the charges have been read. And I don't see anything that is, pressing for me to cover breaking news, some big thing. I want to wrap this up. I'm going to read the comment in a second. I'll end the video with that. But I did find this on CNN. So that's not very clear. The Utah was reading the charges, and they're going to release a whole host of other information. But, we all kind of know this thing is bullshit with the kids. So, I don't, there isn't anything on CNN about that yet, or MSNBC. I didn't check Fox. But it'll be coming in, and I'll do that tomorrow because, I feel better, but this is already a very long video, right? So there's that. And I found this on CNN here.
A dangerous combat zone now. That is the Israeli military's warning to Gaza City residents as its ground incursion into the city begins. Israeli officials say the long-expected operation started early Tuesday and will proceed gradually. with the expectation of fighting up to 3,000 Hamas militants still believed to be there. Gaza health officials...
Okay, so they're occupying Gaza City. You know, at the very moment that Netanyahu was talking about Charlie Kirk and all this shit, right? So just, you know. And like I said, they're a big winner here. Because if he were to turn on Israel, that would be a large block of support that's already moving towards that. And, you know, and Candace Owens is saying that was going to happen. Like she knew it was, they had conversations about that happening. Again, they're all shills, they're all part of the beast, so no one's believable, but there were things he was already starting to say, and now he's dead. So, you know, I don't know, you know, I mean, like I said, you're never going to know all the, you know, looking into, like, searching through other people's dirty clothes, you know, like, it's just gross, you know, like, searching through their garbage, you know, it's just, you know, whatever. And it's just more and more filth. But whatever happened here, whatever the true story is, the official story isn't true, and so all those people who are perpetrating these lies about the official story are complicit. Anyways, let me read this comment here. Okay, I can say that I kind of feel better. I'm not 100% like I was, but I'm not as weak as I was. So there was a comment, I think this is it here. And so I made a video entitled, "The three big winners from the Operation Charlie Kirk are Trump, Bibi, and Erica, a.k.a. Martyr Money." And a person wrote this, and it said, "I didn't see Trump dancing in celebration." So that's the simplicity of this motherfucker right here. That because Trump didn't dance because Charlie Kirk was dead, he didn't, you know, he wasn't a part of it, right? That he didn't benefit. Like, he's really sad, and he's, you know, he didn't dance, so he can't be guilty. Is that your, you know, is that your ability to see through the bullshit? Well, you know, if the guy dances, then he's definitely guilty, right? You know, like you're saying, all these left-wing people dance, yeah, because they're happy about it. And they had nothing to do with it, and they're dancing because they think they've won something, and they're on the defensive, and Trump is going to get away with the Epstein thing because that story is fucking dead. There's not even anything on CNN and MSNBC today or yesterday about it. There's all this information the Democrats aren't even talking about Epstein anymore. So he didn't win that thing? Of course he fucking won. You know how stupid you got to be, right? Like, this is what I'm talking about. And it also is about why America needs to be eradicated. Like, it's the idiocracy is, I mean, the breaking down of the American people, the American mind, the American heart, and you know, all the anger and the hatred and all the stupidity and all these things. And then there's the debt. I mean, it's all of it. We're going in the wrong fucking direction, and people are getting worse. And the system is contributing to that. And as we get worse, the system gets worse. And the people who are in charge of the system get worse. There's been a quick degradation that has been obvious since I've been a kid, and it's happening. And it has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans. It has to do with everybody and the whole thing. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.